Hi, Wyclef.
What's up? Why you hit me with that hi, Wyclef? Let me let the audience know what happened before hi, Wyclef.
I start every segment with hi, Wyclef.
All right, before hi, Wyclef, we was off cam and I was like, yo, y'all know it's heavy election season, you know? And Madeline was like, are you trying to influence my questions? I was like, look, the reason why this show works is because you are pop culture, so.
Yes, and because you don't get to know what we're gonna get into beforehand. Right. That is why it works. But hopefully you won't mind today's topic. It's about something that you have coming up soon that I personally am very excited about. But I have to start by making an admission that I have made to you. And I think people will be very surprised because of the amount of time I've worked with you.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So, you know, when the score came out, it looks like everyone in the world was a huge fan of the score. And then the Fugees broke up.
Okay, clarification. If you watch the 5 Heartbeats, when the 5 Heartbeats break up, they tell you that they are broken up.
Yes.
So just want to clarify.
I'll take that
within the course of history, from the beginning of time, I have never heard one Fuji member thus.
That is true.
So far, I'm just saying. So I just wanted to clarify.
Let me put it this way.
I just wanted to clarify my Jesse Jackson theory of keep hope alive.
So the Fugees didn't break up, guys. However, there was not a next Fugees album. What did happen next was an album called Wyclef Jean Presents the Carnival with the Refugee All-Stars. Did I get the title right?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. What also happened is that I never heard that album. I did not hear the Carnival album until I started working with you 5 years ago. Now, people have taken me to task about that. People have explained to me why this album is so important. People have told me how this album got them through certain points of their high school or college life.
It definitely was
they couldn't have survived without this album.
The Carnival was definitely a college dorm, you know, must have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I've been told.
Yeah, it's that album that went with your choice of Kush.
Choice of Kush?
Yeah, your preference of strain, you know what I mean?
This was a great album to get high to.
Yeah.
Got it. That might be why I wasn't listening to the Carnival. But the truth is, I really did not understand yet you as an artist and producer separate of the group. But I was listening to all of these other songs that you were writing and producing for Destiny's Child, Carlos Santana, Whitney Houston, Shakira. So I was hearing all of this and still never heard the Carnival album. Cool. Right? Okay, so another important piece about that time in history is that at that time, relevant to what I'm about to get into with you. At that time, I was years into working on a show called It's Showtime at the Apollo. When you were still a Fuji, the Fugees appeared on It's Showtime at the Apollo. I had a fierce fight with other people that worked with me at Showtime at the Apollo because Fugees refused to come on unless they could actually play their instruments on stage. And I really, really believed in the group and thought the group should be on and should be able to play their instruments. That ended up being one of the highest rated episodes ever of Showtime at the Apollo and highest rated rerun of an episode of a Showtime at the Apollo. So now, fast forward to today. That was 24 years ago.
Damn, it felt like 24 days ago, but go ahead.
Yeah, 24 years ago. You are about to do something on stage at the Apollo that is going to be live streamed everywhere that you have never done. You're about to perform the whole Carnival album from beginning to end. Like, in sequence of the album. Now being someone who can relate to all those people, the millions upon millions of people who obsessed over that album still, I get it. I am, I think, as excited as everybody else probably is about this happening. So what I want to get into is the mind of Wyclef when he was making the Carnival album. I want to know what made that album such a cult classic? What made it so important to people? I wanna hear about the making of the Carnival. Let's get into it.
Well, I think, like, for me, if you come to my house, right, because we at the crib at a certain part, and I told y'all, don't try to Google map this and try to roll up on me. You know what I mean? I got them things in the crib. The Carnival, rah. So, they call me like a thug hippie, right? I only say that because if you in the crib, you see like I got equipment all over the place. There's studios, there's like, every room has like a speaker that goes with a recording. A guitar, if I want to catch a vibe. Coming from the score, which was a big record, it was huge. And if you follow my career back then, the producers was not that famous. So people wasn't like concerned about who was doing the records, because all they had to do was read the credits. And they'd be like, so for me, I had seen a thing on Wu-Tang Clan and the RZA, and I realized like how much like us like nerds, I call us like thug nerds, have in common, because when I saw like, you know, how we go into music stores and we can't buy the piece of equipment, you know, and we play with it until they kick us out, you know what I'm saying to you? So I want you to understand, so the mind of a producer, I'm listening to like Pink Floyd, The Wall, you feel me? And then one of my favorite rappers, people don't even know, is Coogee Rap. So for me, it's like you listening to all this stuff, you do the score explodes, right? And I think the score exploded in capacity that no one was expecting. So, you know,
including you.
Yeah, of course, like you're in your, because the reason why we didn't expect it, because the first album was called Blunted on Reality.
And it went copper, sorry.
Yeah, it did, it went copper, but it makes me think of a lot of music that goes copper for the time that it's being made. You'll be surprised. I could take you to Jimi Hendrix records. I could take you to Bob Marley records. I could take you. It's sort of like, so I wouldn't define anything as copper, maybe ahead of its time for relevancy when people go back and they listen.
Not many people bought it.
Yeah, definitely.
We'll put it that way.
So, yeah, semi-copper. So, but think about that. That's an explosion. So it's like, where do you go from there? So I'm watching, and I get this like little fear as a producer, because as a producer and a composer, I'm like, holy shit, like, where do you go from here? This is like, and you know, so I'm like, oh man, here we go, like a band that sells 1 trillion copies and you never hear from them again. You know, VH1, where are they now? I'm like, where are we gonna go? So for me, I found my refuge in a producer and a composer, because I felt like if I had to do the score too, there would be like mad stress, you know what I'm saying? Because you literally are like, okay, the first one did this amount, and you know, fans would be expecting a second one too. Can you imagine the peer pressure? So for me, it was like the Carnival was my escape as a composer and a producer. It was my space of art, like Basquiat,
Yes.
the painter.
Yes.
To just say, right, because I couldn't speak in 4 languages or 5 languages on the score. It would have went over your head. Y'all be like, is he mixing, you know, Celia Cruz with beats? It would have been weird because it didn't exist.
That's right.
You know,
That's
you
right.
go back to the carnival, you hear all kind of beats. You hear compa, you hear Afro beats, you hear reggaeton, everything. So for me, I felt it like an escape haven. And it was like, I got a chance to express a piece of art that absolutely nobody was checking for. So when I was working on the carnival, I absolutely had not one blink of stress. I literally was, you know, I felt like some crazy scientist, you know what I'm saying? My beard growing out, you know, and I'm in this, and I'm trying to create something. I would say the craziest thing about it was to present the album to my record company and to say, hey, so I have this album, y'all might want to listen to it. And, you know, and then they heard this piece of art that was in like 5 languages. The carnival is literally like multi-language. It nothing exists like that. So for me, that part was a bit challenging because where the Clef? Okay, so Clef, you mean to tell me you just combined the Bee Gees and, and if that's not enough for you, you want to add the Philharmonic Orchestra? That ain't enough for you. You want to add Celia Cruz? You want to add the Neville Brothers? Where are you going with this thing, bro? Like, just give us some basic hip hop, you know? And for me, I felt like hip hop's the culture. But within the culture, I felt like this piece of art was necessary. And when you listen to the carnival, what I was just going for was just unification. Like, because you got to understand, coming from Haiti, where I come from, growing up in Brooklyn, moving to Jersey, when I tell you people got shot, people was trapping, I've seen women go from prom queen to prom fiend. Like, the era was so real. So for me, I was like, but we all have more in common than we might think. So what if I could create a piece of art where there would be no border? Like, you ain't need no green card to get through here. You didn't need, like, your entry was just like, you know, like in the beginning, yo, you know, welcome to the carnival. You know, your passes are love. If you got a place in your heart for love, come in here and you're gonna have a good time, you know?
Yeah. So you always say that...
And the drinks were free.
You always say Gone Till November is the original trap song. So was it about a real person?
Yeah. I mean, those that know me know I have 2 sides of my life, you know, and I'm never ashamed to say it. And, like, at the end of the day, I mean, what do me and Frank Sinatra had in common? I mean, my whole life, I've been surrounded by gangsters.
Yeah.
But like real gangsters in the sense of, these are just childhood friends we come up with. I didn't tell you drug dealers because all the drug dealers I knew, they worked for the gangsters. So all the way down to, you know, I've had members of my family, like, you know, like the small village where we come from in Haiti, it ties with a lot of people, you know what I mean? So when you hear the score and you hear me say something, sometimes I mention something, we keep referring to ourselves like as Haitian Sicilians, you know what I mean? It was like, not to say like Sicilian in that sense, it was just the come up of how we came up was, we landed in Coney Island, Brooklyn. You feel what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
So this is really where we ended up. So for me, I just remember like, it was just not, what we was doing was just not cool because you have to understand. So we called it fresh. You feel what I'm saying to you? So, and you know, Madeline, because you fresh and you've always been fresh. So for me, you know, like when I say on the score, I used to work at Burger King, a king taking orders. It's a lot of peer pressure on you as a young kid when you seeing your boys with all of this drip, icy, you know, the fly girls, you a teenager, you know, dude is barely 18, he's pulling up in the Maxima, you know, so you know, Gone to November it's everything you hear as we detail it, it's for real. This is what happens. What happens is when those that understand the movement of how trap really works, it's when you don't want to get caught, you literally are going to a virgin territory because you going somewhere where you know, like, you don't have to watch your back or your head. You go into a safe zone. And at the time, it looked like Baltimore was a safe zone. You see what I'm saying
Virginia.
to you? Yeah, so, who you knew be trapping in Virginia? All right, so it was a safe zone at the time, but can you imagine what happens when someone makes the run and doesn't make it back?
Right.
And now their girl is waiting for them?
Yeah.
And I'm literally like, yeah. When I say like Gone to November, it's like, you know the person ain't coming back, but it's sort of like you have to give that sense of hope to their spouse, like, you know, it's going to be all right. You know what I'm saying to you? So in that sense, we don't sugarcoat it. Like the Carnival, it just literally is like it's a film. So we take you on this trip to Baltimore and don't make it back.
Do you know that every year, every single year, on November 1st, you trend on Twitter? Some of the funniest tweets I have ever seen. It's like, oh, it's November, is Wyclef back? Yeah. Can somebody find Wyclef?
Yo, you know what's funny about that is, so when you write a song, there's always a double entendre.
Yeah.
So I'm never here, like I'm going to November. So my girl is like, what? I'm going to November, like I'm always on tour, I'm constantly gone. And when you hear this song, you know how a song becomes bigger than you and every individual has their own meaning of the song?
Yep.
So I remember like being at the airport and dude pulls up, he has his two kids with him, and you could tell like they are from like the super hills of the suburbs, like super high hills, because the whole accent came out. He was like, hey, Wyclef John. He didn't even call me John. He was like, Wyclef John. Hey, Timmy, come here, Timmy. Come here, Timmy. Can you do that thing you do just one time? I'll be gone to November. Come on, Timmy, listen, this guy's great. You know, and I'm like, I'll be gone to November, I'll be gone. And Timmy's like, yeah, I love this song. And I'm like, man, they don't know this song is about drugs.
At all. Not even at all. So I'm taking up a lot of time, but I have to ask this question too. What about the skits? Because these weren't just interludes. These were like whole skits that actually stitched together if you pay attention, which I didn't at first.
And a lot of people didn't. It went over their head. Album was a classic vibe, but the skits, I got a lot of flack for it from the beginning.
Really?
Because even like my record company, they wanted me to go straight to the songs.
Right.
Because at the time, no one was literally, as much effort as I put into the songs, you know, I put into the skits. Because for me, that's how we used to communicate on the corner. You know, like I was just a storyteller. I'll sit there and tell you stories all day, you know, and the old heads, you know what I mean? You don't know nothing about no music, boy. So for me, the skits was important, but the skits was important in the sense of, do you see how today we're dealing with the immigration laws and the policies and certain things we want changed?
Yes.
So when you go back, anyone now, when you listen to the Carnival, when you listen to it, you're gonna be like, holy shit, like, this dude was talking about immigration and putting these policies like in place like ever since back then. And literally like when I did Guantanamera, I remember like us being upstairs and I remember who was downstairs, you know what I'm saying to you? So for me, putting the skits together, you know, later, whether if it was Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock, you know, I was seeing the reviews and a lot of like brilliant comedians, like they loved the album and they loved the skits, you know what I mean? I had people like Talent, people like Will, just different like, because I love comedy so much that I was like, what happens if you could put comedy against like some heavy issues at times? And that's how we did the Carnival.
And lots of artists afterwards started putting interludes on their album.
Definitely. Well, once again, the interlude, right? They always say an idea comes from another idea. And that other idea is great. But can you make it greater? And then can the next person even make it greater? Then we all are inspired by each other. So for me, it's Pink Floyd. Like, I keep going back. I'm like, yo, any dude that want to really, 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 really be like some out there type producer, like where you just out the box, you're not worried about anything, and you want to put like a good like 35 years of music, and then 1,000 years people could keep catching up. Pink Floyd. So for me, the way I used to hear these skits that they used to do, I used to be like, man, you actually could just put skits on music. So then I more thought about like audio, movies. So all of my music that I do, after listening to it, I was like, they gotta be like audio films.
Yeah.
So that's how we came about that.
Wyclef, thank you for schooling me on the Carnival, and thank you for having me on another episode of Run That Back.
Definitely, and the Apollo is gonna be dope because my inspiration is like Herbie Hancock and Quincy Jones. So when y'all tune in, because we're not gonna have an audience, we can't move around.
It's gonna be live stream.
Live stream, but y'all gonna get the experience of how these records were created. Because a lot of times you just hear it. Just make sure like you have your drink with you, because we are just gonna like go in and have a great time.
I love it.